Up. Hello everyone. Today we got our hands on the 540th G30 in the current body style with a B58 engine and all-wheel drive, and we just couldn't pass by without filming it for you. Up. Hello everyone. Today we'll talk a bit about the body styles in which the 5th generation of the G series was released. It came in the G30 body, which is the sedan like the one featured in our video. There was also the G31 body, which is the station wagon. For the Chinese market, a rare long wheelbase version, the G38, was produced. It would be interesting to have it for review, although it's almost impossible, and compare it to the 7 Series, which we covered in a previous video. With almost every automaker, the next generation tends to be larger in size than the previous one. They compete in terms of eco-friendliness, efficiency, and dynamics, so lighter body construction is key. For example, with the 7 Series, as we previously discussed, BMW used carbon fiber in body production. Here they took a simpler approach. In the F10 generation, only the hood, fenders, and doors were made of aluminum. In this generation, the roof and trunk were added to that list. This resulted in nearly a 100 kilogram weight reduction compared to the previous generation, improving dynamics, efficiency, and handling. Unlike the F Series, you'll rarely find N Series engines in these cars. Most of the engines here are B Series, except for the N63, which is rare and typically found in the 550th model. The engine lineup includes 2-liter diesel, 2-liter gasoline, 3-liter diesel, and 3-liter gasoline options. The 3-liter diesel came in various versions with different numbers of turbochargers. All of these engines are generally reliable, except for the N63, which is consistently problematic. However, all B-Series engines are considered dependable. Since we have the 540th model, it features the B58 engine, a 3-liter gasoline unit with a turbocharger, providing excellent dynamics. If we compare it to the 7 Series we reviewed, its rear-wheel drive version reached 100 kilometers per hour in 5.6 seconds. Here, the rear-wheel drive version is rated at 5.1 seconds, while our all-wheel drive variant achieves it in 4.8 seconds. In my opinion, any car that accelerates under 5 seconds is incredibly fast, even by today's standards. If that's still not enough for you, we can offer Stage 1 or Stage 2 tuning. As boot mod dealers, we recommend this upgrade to achieve 400 or more horsepower and hurricane-like acceleration of around 4 seconds to 100 kilometers per hour. If you want even more power, there are proven solutions for these engines, such as Stage 3 with a hybrid turbo. We can assist you with that too. Our partners can help push this engine to over 600 horsepower, delivering dynamics comparable to the M5 F90. The M5 F90 costs around $100,000 on our market, whereas the 540th starts from $35,000 to $45,000, depending on the configuration. For those looking for a wolf in sheep's clothing, this is, in my opinion, an excellent and very intriguing option. The car we're showcasing has a rich configuration featuring LED adaptive headlights, a CAFAS system, and a 360-degree camera setup. We'll look at more interesting features when we move to the interior. As usual, we'll start our interior review with the rear seats. Let's try sitting down and see how it feels here. Right. What do we have here? Sitting is quite comfortable. There's enough space considering my height of 1.95 meters. There's not much headroom for me, of course. What features do we have here? Sunshades on rear windows. Also an electric sunshade in the back, heated seats and ventilation. Let's see what we have in the armrest. In the armrest, we only have cup holders. There are no other features. Well, of course, we shouldn't expect much more in the 5 Series because this car is more positioned for the driver. Of course, there's more space and it's more comfortable than in the 3 Series, but considering we've already filmed the long wheelbase 7 Series, it was definitely much more comfortable and spacious there. I could sit however I wanted, and even with my height, there was still plenty of space. Here I'm a bit cramped. I have to stretch my legs and lower myself a bit to avoid hitting my head. Immediately we can see the wood trim I don't like wood, but in this case, the matte wood looks nice with the aluminum inserts and the Bowers and Wilkins sound system. I think it sounds great, but we won't showcase it in the review, as it doesn't make much sense. In general, that's all. Nothing else interesting here. Let's move forward. I can also show right away that it has power window closers. And we can see keyless entry installed on all 4 doors. Considering, as I mentioned, that this car is designed for the driver, let's take a look at the front. It was a surprise for me, and I didn't think I'd be telling you about this, but the seats are incredibly soft. I've probably never sat in softer seats, even though this is a 5 Series, just to remind you. However, you have to pay for that with the fact that with less than 70,000 kilometers, around 60,000 kilometers on the odometer, the seats already show signs of wear. Wear marks, small cracks. Well, you have to pay for comfort. Since we've moved to the interior, let's take a little drive and I'll tell you about the cabin, how it looks, what I like or don't like, what features it has, and my impressions of the ride. As for the interior, the trim, and the look, well, everything is almost black here. Black leather, black seats, black roof, black inserts, matte wood. I really like this interior combination, and I think it's almost perfect. One of the features that could have been here is if the car, by the way, I forgot to mention when we were outside, came with the M package. It would be nice if it had the M package, it would look more aggressive. The car looks relevant on the outside, by the way, but quite restrained. Not exactly for the young crowd like the F10 was before, which had spoilers, body kits, splitters, and so on. The interior also looks very relevant, minimalist, and as for the features, it's quite well equipped. It has a heated steering wheel, which I really like, especially where it's located. In previous models, the placement was different and less convenient. All the controls are also located on the steering wheel here, unlike the previous model, where they were on the left side of the driver. They also moved the central lock button, which is unusual for me as it's also on the door now instead of being centrally located. The dashboard is LED, very interesting and cool. It changes, its visual appearance changes when switching between modes. Very convenient, informative, and modern. Some nice features here include wireless charging, which is a really nice feature for me because I'm always losing charging cables. Cables in the car, it's always a problem. So here, basically, you can always charge your phone. As for the suspension, I don't claim to be an expert or a top reviewer, but I can share my own impressions, especially in comparison with the 7 because I've been driving it for a while. The car is more composed. It absorbs small bumps more noticeably, like speed bumps and such, and drives more rigidly. The 7 is significantly more comfortable, especially for our roads. I consider the 7 Series more ideal because it's more comfortable. In terms of handling, honestly, I didn't feel much of a difference. The 5 Series is a bit more rigid, with a sharper gas pedal and slightly sharper steering. But when you go through corners a bit more actively, the 7 Series doesn't feel much different, at least not unless you're pushing it to the limit. The performance is similar, and there's no noticeable lack of power. As I mentioned, this car has the B58 engine, and if there's any power deficit, as I've said before, you can always chip it, and the car will have a performance that will surprise many. All-wheel drive is equipped with many features, such as lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control, and similar options. I'm not a big fan of them and don't think they're absolutely necessary, but they are there. Maybe someone wants to play around with them. The car, let's say, not that old, so you'd want to have these features at least to show off in front of friends and demonstrate how they work. Also, what was missing in the 7 Series was a comfortable seat with a reclining backrest. That's definitely top-notch. The seating here is much more comfortable than in the 7 Series we drove. It's truly an essential feature, one of the most important ones worth paying for. With it, the car feels completely different in terms of comfort. Even though the suspension is stiffer, it's more comfortable to drive. I think for long distances, this option would make a difference, but it's not available. Also, I see a projection. They are calling about work. Hello? We have reviews on the 7 Series and 3 Series on our channel. Vadim filmed the 3 Series and I filmed the 7 Series. Now we're filming the 5 Series G body. And if I wanted to switch from my F31 to a G Series, what would I choose? I would probably choose something in between, namely the 5 Series. Since the 7 Series is a bit too big, although it's very comfortable and great in terms of driving experience, such size in the city in Kyiv isn't really necessary, while the 5 Series is just optimal in terms of handling dynamics and overall dimensions. The 3 Series is still a bit too small, plus they started being produced later and are, in my opinion, unjustifiably expensive. For the same price, you can get much more in the 5 Series. So I think my choice would be the 5 Series. Regarding engines, by the way, I'll say that if I were to change my 320D F31 body 2-liter diesel, I would most likely go for the 5 Series G31 in touring body with 3L diesel engine. Let's say this one can also be tuned, and I think the dynamics would be around 5 seconds in this body, which is quite good. The 2-liter diesel, in my opinion, is a bit too little for this price. And in the 5 Series with this body style, it might feel a bit lacking, hard to describe, but still insufficient. Regarding the fuel, good engines, but I believe diesels are much better for everyday use. More practical, more convenient, and they don't drive much worse, while also significantly more economical. As for reliability, I can't say for sure yet, but overall, all the engines are reliable. The gasoline engines are also trouble-free, so we won't discuss reliability in this case. Well, the N63, as I mentioned, since I work at a service station and know what it's like, we don't even consider it. I think the performance there is phenomenal, but the fuel consumption and reliability are discouraging, so I don't see much point in it. Of course, maybe we'll manage to film a review in the future and take a drive in the M550D to assess its performance. It has a 3-liter diesel engine with 4 turbochargers, something you rarely see. BMW decided to take a risk and create such an interesting engine. It delivers 400 horsepower, insane performance, and at the same time, it's quite fuel efficient. I think, of course, with high mileage, this engine might cause some problems, considering the number of turbochargers and all the auxiliary components it has. But at the moment, since these body styles are still relatively new, most of them are under 5 years old. These cars and their mileage are around 100,000 or definitely up to 200,000 kilometers, so there are no issues with them. Also, an interesting feature that remains on these body styles is the rear wheel steering. I've had the chance to drive the G30 with such a suspension featuring rear wheel steering and adaptive suspension. The handling, let's say, is unusual, like in a video game. For me, it was completely unclear how it behaved, though I only drove it a little. Still, when you change lanes, the car shifts completely. The suspension behaves quite interestingly. When you're already driving at a certain speed, from about 50 kilometers per hour, the wheels turn in one direction, so to speak, and the car shifts as a whole. If you're parking at low speed, the wheels turn in opposite directions to reduce the turning radius. It's a really cool feature, but again, just like the 4 turbochargers, it's interesting to see how it will perform with high mileage when the car has over 200,000 kilometers, maybe closer to 300,000. How will everything hold up, and how much will repairs cost for the owner? By the way, the car is exactly the kind we love from the category American. Chop, the car was hit in the front. It's assembled with original components. Almost all the body parts that were damaged were bought in the correct color by the owner. Yes, there are some scratches on them because parts from salvage yards aren't always stored carefully, but the advantage is that they are not repainted. Everything is in its original paint, matching the color. Original parts, which are valued on the market. Additionally, the owner, when restoring the car, installed full European optics, both front headlights and rear taillights. It's not really worth discussing the price the car ended up costing, since the exchange rate when it was brought over a year ago was around 27, something like that. Now it's 35 plus. The car was brought through the Odessa port, and currently the port is closed and cars are now shipped through Georgia or Europe, which is more expensive, so discussing prices is pointless. By the way, the car is for sale, and I think we'll leave a link in the description for it. It's quite an interesting option, and I wouldn't mind having one myself, considering the pretty high-end configuration. It has low mileage, around 60,000 to 70,000 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. Let's check now. It's 68,000 kilometers, and it's a 2017 model year. So to sum up, after reviewing the most popular BMW models, the 3 Series, 5 Series, and 7 Series, we can make conclusions about which one to choose based on different criteria and who each car suits. Of course, if you want maximum comfort, the 7 Series is the obvious choice. The 5 Series doesn't compare, even with a high-end configuration. It will never have the same suspension quality as the 7 Series, which we drove. It will still be firmer. On the other hand, if you want more agility, you could go for the 5 Series. It will still offer good comfort, decent sound insulation, and better dynamics and handling. But if you're looking to have fun and punish everyone in traffic, then the 3 Series is the way to go, preferably the 340i with the B58 engine. Drive it for about 3,000 kilometers, and you'll be outpacing even M models, let alone other car brands. Personally, my choice would be the G31 wagon, preferably in the M package with a 3-liter diesel engine. But since I don't have the budget for it yet, I guess it's time to go to work.